Hi guys, welcome back to Delicate Moments. My name's Steph.
Do you believe in magic? Delicate moments that last forever.
Since the last video, we've been really busy. We've been planning a photo shoot. I've been sewing up these beautiful dresses behind me. So I'll run you through a little bit of what we've been up to. So the plan is, at the end of March, beginning of April, I'm going to take our two little girls to a studio and have them model the dresses I'm making. We're going to use these photos for Etsy, for social media. Really important to me that my girls are the face of the brand. We're right at the beginning of building this brand, and it's important that my family are involved in it as much as possible. Without the little girls, we wouldn't have Delicate Moments because I wouldn't have bought a sewing machine and I wouldn't have started sewing. So I'll show you what my favourite dresses I've made so far. It is this little bunny one. So as you can see, it's the beautiful bunny print and it's on like a meadow background. We've got a yellow ruffle trim on the collar. We've got yellow sleeve bands, and my favourite part of this dress is the big bow. As you're watching me, you'll realise I love bows. I'll put a bow anywhere. So look how beautiful she is. That's my favourite so far. You'll see a few more designs coming. I'm going to take you along to make the rest of the dresses. We're going to get started. I've just put a hoodie on because it's freezing in the cabin today and I'm having problems with my heater. I'm going to start making the ruffles. So we're going to start with the sleeves. So we've got two sleeves here. I need to hem them and then sew the gathering stitches. Now I've hemmed them, I'm just going to sew them in. Okay, so now we need to sew our gathering stitches. So we're going to set our stitch length to 4. Now we're going to set these to one side. We're going to get our neck ruffle now. Here's our neck ruffle. I'm going to fold it in half, wrong sides together and press. I'll be back in a second. Now I need to sew some gathering stitches along the raw edge. Just a little bit of thread that's got caught. With the neck ruffle, I'm going to sew 2 lots of gathering stitches because I want a more uniformed ruffle. Okay, so now the gathering stitches are sewn, we're going to pull these 2 threads at the back. I'm just going to gather it about half the size. And then we'll come back to the gathering once we're fitting it to the bodice. So we're just going to do the same on this side. Now that's all gathered. Now we're going to move on to the bodice ruffle. So we've got 4 of each pieces. Just going to work out the sizes. So these are the front and back pieces. I'm going to place on a side piece, right sides together, place them together like so. And we need to stop sewing at 1/2 inch, so Just going to mark my seam allowance. Just going to make the line where we're going to stop sewing. So I'm just going to sew them together. We've sewn that to attached. We're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to carry on attaching each side until we get a square. Trim these little tails for our two side pieces. Now we need to sew and attach this side. Just going to mark off the 1/2 inch again and just draw the seam allowance. Now we need to sew and attach to the final corner, making it a square. So now when we open this up, we will have our square. We're going to do exactly the same again, and that will be for our lining. Now the seams are pressed nice and flat, we're going to place the bodice main on top of the bodice lining, right sides together, so we can make it I thought I'd got them tangled then. So we're going to place them right sides together so then we can sew them. Now we've flipped that together, we're going to sew around the outside with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now that's been sewn, we need to trim the seam allowance. So we've got our pinking shears and we're just going to trim 1/2 of the seam allowance away. So we've got something looking like this now. I'm just going to taper the edges off so when the fabric is turned the right side out, we get a nice sharp corner. Just looks a lot neater. So I'm going to do that on all 4 corners. Right, let's turn right side out and press. Just going to grab my knitting needle and give the corners a little push so then they're nice and sharp. Okay, now I'm going to press this. Okay, so that's all now pressed. Looking a lot neater. What we need to do now is we need to sew gathering stitches around the inside. So we're going to do 2 lots of gathering stitches on each line. Okay, we've got all our gathering stitches stitched in there. We're going to set this to one side and I'm going to move on to making the bodice. So first of all is we're going to make the bodice lining. So we're just going to do right sides together. We're just going to snip down here to make an opening. Make an opening for our keyhole. And then the same on this side, right sides together, matching up the shoulder seams. We're going to find the bodice to main pieces and do exactly the same. We're just going to sew them together. We're going to use 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then we're going to snip the tails off. Sew the lining. We should have 2 pieces that are joined together looking like this. Next we're going to move on to the flutter sleeve. So we're going to be working on the bodice main. Here I've got my flutter sleeves. So I'm just going to gather this a little bit before we measure it against the bodice. We've got a fold mark here. We're going to place that on the shoulder seam. That gives us somewhere to work to when ensuring that it fits. So that's the first place I'm going to clip. And I'm just going to spread these gathers around here and get it to the right size. Yeah, happy with that. So we're going to get that secured. Now do the other half exactly the same, making sure that it fits all the way around. Now we're going to do the other side. Again, we're just going to gather it a little bit before we place it down. Now we have both of them clipped in place, we're just going to sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and sew the sleeves to the bodice. Attach the other sleeve. Now we're moving on to the bodice yoke. We're just going to trim down here to make our opening for the button loop. Just going to sew that 1/2 inch. Same on the other side. We're going to get our ruffle. We're going to attach it to the yoke. So first of all, we're going to do right sides together. And we're just going to organise these threads a little bit better because it can get a bit confusing. Especially with so many gathering stitches. So all I'm doing now is just pinning each corner to the corner of the bodice. We need some pins. So we're just going to pin each corner in. And we're going to just let it sit about 1/4 of an inch from the edge. And we're just going to go around and keep doing the same. So we've got that done on all four corners now. We are pinned in and ready to gather. So this is what it looks like from the back. What we're going to do is pull these gathering stitches and get a nice ruffle going around the edge of the yoke. So we've got one side gathered. We're going to do the same on all the other three sides. Forgot to put the trim on. So as you can see, I've just basted that in place to hold it there for me. I'll just trim these off. I'm going to do the same all the way around. Just going to make a little slit here, so then when it goes to the shoulder seam, it sits nice and flush. So this is what we're left with. Now we need to add the bodice ruffle. So I'm going to add the ruffle all four corners and then we'll get that sewn in place. So to add the ruffle, I'm going to place it right sides together and I'm just going to pin all four corners. And you'll see, as I pull these threads, it will gather the fabric. And I'm just making it the same size as the yoke. And this will create a nice ruffle. So let's check how long we've got to go. So we need a little bit more. So I'll just move these gathers to this end. Check the size again. Okay, now it's gathered, what we need to do is distribute these ruffles nice and even. So it's very tight on this side, we need to make it all even. So now we have a yoke that looks like this. We need to sew to attach it. So the way I'm going to sew this is I'm going to sew a straight stitch, and then I'm going to leave my needle down, pivot the fabric, and again. On each corner I'm going to leave my needle down and pivot the fabric. Let's get that sewn. So we now have that sewn. It's starting to look a little bit like this. This corner, as you can see, hasn't come out right. So I'm just going to take a few stitches out and then sew back over it. Now let's check and see if that's helped massively. So as you can see, now the corner is nice and flush. So what we need to do now is get rid of all these threads. So we're going to take our gathering stitches out and we're just going to pull them. Okay, so now we're going to find the bodice main and we're going to place the yoke on top. We're going to move the sleeves out of the way because we don't want to sew them. And I'm just going to match up the shoulder seams. And then I'm just going to clip it all around the edges of the neckline. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to baste this in place. So we'll take it to the sewing machine. This is what we're looking like up to now. I just need to top stitch down our trim that we put on. So I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to change the thread because I want it white. I'm going to clip it at that 1/2 inch mark. I'm just roughly gauging how long I need it to be so then we can equal out our gathers. So as you can see, we need it a lot longer. So I'm just going to undo some of these ruffles. So I would say that's pretty even. So I'll start clipping it in. Now I'm just going to baste that in place. So now that's nice and secure, we have a neck ruffle, which will sit so pretty. So I've found 2 things that I think might work. We've got some beading cord and some like elasticated cord. Not too sure if this is going to be too thick. This might work. Let's check our measurements to see what we need. 2 1/4 we need. So I'll just cut a clean edge. I feel like this might work. So I'm just going to mark down 1/2 inch. see where this lies. Yeah, I think that should be absolutely fine. I think that's what we're going to use. We're going to clip it in. I wonder if 2 pins would work better. Feel like I'm going to stab my finger. No. Okay, that's nice and secure there now. Now we need to attach the lining. So we're going to get our lining. We're going to put right sides together. Just going to join up the seams. So now we need to sew to attach. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 1/2 inch seam allowance around the neck. Then down by the keyhole I'm going to do 1/4 inch seam allowance, just so then we don't start going onto the ruffles. We want to avoid sewing on the ruffles. So let's get that done. So now you can see that they are attached. What we need to do now is trim round the seam allowance and then clip our corners. So I'm just checking that this hasn't been affected. It hasn't. We haven't sewn through it. So we're going to get our pinking shears and trim the seam allowance round the neck. This can be a bit tricky because of how many layers of fabric there are, but just make sure that you don't cut through anything on the other side. So you just want to be trimming that seam allowance. This bit always makes me really nervous because a few times I've cut something I shouldn't have. As you can see, it's tough to get through the fabric because of how many ruffles there are. So we're not going to touch this seam allowance because we've already sewn it at 1/4 inch, so 1/4 inch, so that it now matches this seam allowance. I'm just going to clip these corners. Now I'm just going to cut into the neckline, make little snips, and this will just allow the fabric to sit nice and pretty when you turn it right sides out. Okay, so now we're going to turn this the right side out. We're going to put the lining through the neck hole. I'm now going to press this and come back. Now we're just going to baste that in place and then we can move on to the skirt. Hi guys, welcome back. So today we're going to try and finish the bodice and then we're going to move on to the skirt. I'm hoping today we might get it finished. I'm not sure, we'll see how it goes. So what's left to do on this bodice is we need to join these side seams. So we're just going to put right sides together, clip these in place. Going to do the same on the other side. Just going to snip these threads away and turn my iron off. So I'm just going to sew this with 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut angled, get some better scissors. I'm going to cut a triangle out in this seam. That will just allow it to sit nice and flat when we're wearing it. Well, I won't be wearing it. We'll do the same on the other side. So we've got something that looks like this now. As you see, when it bends, there won't be a bulk of fabric here. I'm just going to trim these seams with the pinking shears. That just stops the fabric fraying. So it says here to cut 6 pieces of the bottom tied skirt. On the actual pattern, it says cut 4. You should have 4 pieces. So I've just checked the cut chart and it's actually just 4 pieces. So I've got an extra 2 pieces that I didn't need, which isn't a problem, but I was just a little bit confused there. So we only need 4 instead of 6. So here we've got our top 2 pieces. And that's what we're going to be working with first. So we need to make this into a loop. So we're going to place them right sides together. And we're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to set that to one side. So now we're moving on to the bottom tier. We're going to do the same again, make sure the right sides are together. And we're just going to piece all these pieces together. Now on the last piece, we're just going to connect it to the first piece, right sides together. So we've got one continuous loop of fabric. I'm just checking now that none of them are twisted, which they shouldn't be. No, none are twisted. So I'm going to put these spare pieces to one side. And we're going to sew these with 1/2 inch seam allowance. I do just need to change my thread back because we put the white in there. And I'm just going to sew both of these pieces 1/2 inch seam allowance. There we are, there's the skirt pieces attached. Okay, so now we're going to add the trim to the bottom of the hem. We're going to turn it right sides out. We're working on the bottom tier now. So we're going to turn it right sides out. we're going to put it right sides together, and I'm just going to add this trim to the bottom. I'm going to pin a little bit on, and then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to do my hem. So I'm going to grab a ruler, and if I was to do 1/4 inch seam allowance, that's too small. I'm going to do 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to go along and pin it along. Okay, now I'm going to sew that in place. Okay, so we've now got something looking like this. We're just going to go over to the overlocker and overlock these seams. Now this is what we're working with. A beautifully finished seam. So I'm just going to top stitch this down. So we've laid that out there. Now we're just going to gather this fabric, which is the bottom tier. So what I'm aiming for is each section on here, I want to match a section on here. So I'm just going to turn it the wrong side out, and I'm just going to start gathering. So we're pulling the 2 bottom threads, the bobbin threads, to gather the fabric. So as you can see, when I pull here, it gathers the fabric. There's 4 sections on here, so I'm going to gather 2 sections from this side and 2 sections from the other side of the stitches. So I'm just pulling these gathering stitches along. So that's about the right length. I'm just going to even these gathers out. So we're going from this seam to that corner. And now we're just going to even these gathers out. I'm going to go to the other side of the skirt and start to gather this side. So we're getting the 2 bobbin threads. So the next step is to get this onto the top tier. So what we're going to do, right sides together. Remembering the little marks we made on the fabrics earlier. So here and here. We're going to match each seam up to one of these points. And I want the back of my skirt to be here. So we're going to just put this right over, pull that underneath. So essentially it's inside, and I'm going to match this seam to this seam. Trim off these little bits, clip it in place. We've got our mark here, so we're going to find another seam. And we're going to work towards that, and we're just going to evenly split the gathers. Going to do the same with this seam and this seam. So now we're looking like this. What we need to do now is we need to sew around here to attach it. So we'll do that. Okay, so now we have that gathered. I'm going to turn it inside out. Just going to grab my seams. And we want to put this bodice right sides together. So we're going to put this inside. So we're going to put this inside. So, I've now finished the dress. It's absolutely stunning, very vintage, lots of ruffles, just exactly what I love. This dress was a lot harder to complete than I thought it was going to be. It's the first time doing a few different things and I did struggle when we was on the bodice. There's a new method called the burrito method and I just couldn't quite grasp that straight away. But we ended up doing it in the end and it looks absolutely beautiful. Another thing that I've done for the first time is the button loop. So I've never actually hand sewn a button on, but here we are, it's on. I actually had a lot of fun making this dress because I did learn a lot. It wasn't straightforward, it was a bit stressful at times, but it's complete and I absolutely love it. With sewing you have to have a lot of patience and I'm learning. You do make mistakes, as long as you put them right, that's absolutely fine. So I'll talk you through what's on the dress again. We've got a nice trim around the yoke. We've got flutter sleeves. We've also got a big ruffle around the yoke, so it goes all the way around. And on the back, I've followed the trim around as well. You have to excuse my voice, I'm a little bit poorly today. So, we've got a tired skirt with the beautiful eyelet trim at the bottom. I'm really impressed with how this dress turned out, to be honest. As I say, I did struggle a little bit, but it was totally worth it. I can't wait to make this dress again. I'm going to make it in a different colour for my other daughter. And this dress at the photo shoot is going to look stunning. It's a very full skirt, so when it's photographed and twirling, I'll show you, it will come out. We've made a little bow at the top to match. And I'm just going to attach a clip to that for my daughter. She's 4, she's got quite a little bit of hair, so she will be able to put a clip in for her. So yeah, that's the completed dress. Thank you for watching. Make sure you're subscribing and you can see lots more videos of dresses like this being made. I am very new to making videos, so hopefully we'll get better together. Thank you very much. Bye for now.